My name is Paula Pfeiffer Moreira. I have 2 bionic ears, and I am the founder and admin of Crônicas da Surdez community. Together, we are changing the way our society sees hearing loss, hearing aids, and cochlear implants, and empowering people to fight for the rights in accessibility issues.
In February, I created a Facebook post. It was really a call to action to help the seniors in my community. So there was a big snowstorm and the city of Chicago became overwhelmed by Mother Nature, and it happened pretty fast. It was on that day where I saw the power of a single Facebook post, because we have volunteers coming from all over the city. Some people came from even as far as Indiana.
We're a true Facebook community, starting with a single unpaid post on Facebook from me as a new mum feeling lonely and unfit. When 75 mums turned up to meet me for that first run, I had a massive light bulb moment. Fast forward to now, we've got 35,000 women who run with us at hundreds of free social runs every single week.
Through working with Facebook, I want to learn how to use technology constructively. So to build communities through volunteer activities, and I want to target specific demographics with specific projects, and I also want to expand my online and my physical community so we can just hurdle these socioeconomic barriers that are dividing our city.
With the power of Facebook tools and resources, farmers have been able to connect with each other and meet online. In the Africa Farmers Club, we see it succeed because it is a farmer-led and a farmer-owned initiative that is going to make farmers successful and take them to the next level.
Super. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Deepti. I lead a partnerships team at Facebook that's focused on supporting individuals like the ones it is that you just met to make sure that their work can be sustainable, but not only sustainable, that they can really build a career path and dedicate their lives to doing what it is that they're really passionate about. And the reason why we're investing so much in them is because we believe that this is kind of a new breed of entrepreneurship it is that we're seeing, that we're calling community entrepreneurship, that are addressing social issues and solving the problems it is that affect us in our daily lives, but also doing this really hard work of weaving our society back together in this moment of kind of deep social fragmentation and polarization. Hold on, I had some statistics, great, cool. And so why does this matter to Facebook is probably a question it is that's on your guys' mind, and why are we investing so much? So we actually changed the mission of our company 2 years ago. It used to be to make the world more open and connected, but in 2016 we changed it to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. And as a part of that, what we realized is that there were individuals, like the ones it is that you just met, and you're gonna meet a couple more later, who are really at the helm of using the platform to build community, and we wanted to be able to really support them. So community is a word it is that I think means something to all of us. We each have our own definition of community. I hear the word community used a lot at events like this at Skoll. And often I think that we use this word community to talk about an aggregation of people. At Facebook, as it regards this work around kind of building community and community entrepreneurship, we have a very specific definition of community and the types of communities it is that we're trying to build. And that's the relationship between one person and a group of people, which is a give and take relationship. So where the individual is giving trust and investment, and in return, getting a sense of safety, security, and safety, connection, and belonging. So what community isn't to us is just a group of people that you serve, because that dynamic relationship isn't there. And nor is it just like the people it is that you live with or that you may have an identity kind of connection with. It really is this dynamic relationship that we're trying to foster more of in society. And so the phenomenon it is that we see is people really going from community management. So how many of you like have an organization that has somebody who's a community manager in it and like think about community management? So like I see lots of hands going up, right? So we think about community management. We think about kind of how we want to serve the stakeholders we care about the most, and we also think about how we're going to get feedback from those individuals to make sure that we're designing from their perspective. And I think that, design theory has really helped us kind of take this human-centered design approach to really make sure that we're listening to their feedback. And I believe this is something it is that we're all doing. But what we believe we need to do is actually move from community management to community entrepreneurship. The difference between these two pictures, there's people, we're listening to them, we're serving them, but it's the lines that are connecting them. So the strength of the chart on the left is in the relationships it is that are being built between people, between the people it is that we're serving, not just kind of this like more top-down approach. And this is really kind of the phenomenon it is that we're seeing that our platform is providing these community entrepreneurs to really be able to build communities that have this resilience, that have this strength, that are building this social capital and this relational capital it is that we're really losing. And I'll just take a break. I mean, how many of you guys are in a Facebook group? Okay, so y'all know that it's a usually we find a lot of value in these Facebook groups. And how many of you are adminning a Facebook group? Great, so then you guys will also appreciate how much time and effort it really takes to make sure that the group is thriving in a way where the relationships are really being built, and how the Facebook groups as a product really allows for that kind of relationship to be built between people, not only between the leader and the individuals it is that are trying to be served. And so for us, this is really, really important. We're here at Skoll, we're talking about really big issues like child health, agriculture, education, and you'll meet some of our community entrepreneurs who are addressing those issues. But what's really inspired us is that they're not only tackling the issue, they're not only solving the problem, they're not only serving people, but they're really addressing this kind of moment in time it is that we are operating in, where our societies are really kind of breaking apart, and the social fabric of the lives it is that we live need to be kind of rewoven together. And so that's why I was looking for this piece of paper to share some of these statistics. So 40 years ago, 60% of people said they trusted each other. Today, only 19% of people say they trust other people. Today, loneliness is doubled from 40 years ago. In 1970, 30% of people said they hung out with their neighbors twice a week. And today, 8% of people say that they hang out with their neighbors at any time, and 33% of people say they've never met their neighbors. So we're really living in a moment. Some of you may have read Bob Putnam's work on bowling alone, but where our social capital, our relational capital is what's declining. And I think that too often we don't really address that as a social issue that we need to tackle head on. We focus on the things that are more technical, agriculture, water, education. But we really believe that we need to tackle this head on, and that these community entrepreneurs are at the helm of really demonstrating a new path for us. And so we want to really establish this path for them. We're here at Skoll celebrating social entrepreneurship. My career has been built as a social entrepreneur. So I started at Acumen in 2005. I helped start the Acumen Fund Fellowship Program. I ran it for the first 3 years. And then I started a social enterprise myself, an education business, in partnership with the Skoll awardee, actually, Vicky Colbert from Columbia. And what I personally realized is that as I was running this social enterprise, what attracted me to Jacqueline and the Acumen Fund was this idea that the market was going to be a listening tool, that we were really going to listen to what people needed, and as we treated them as customers, we were really going to make sure that we served their needs as opposed to what traditional aid was doing by kind of like dropping what it is that we believed people needed. But when I was that social entrepreneur myself, I found myself in a position where I was actually not listening to the parents, the children, and the teachers as much as I wish I could have, and really kind of listening and trying to figure out what the needs of my investors were to satisfy them so that I could stay sustainable. And so that's when I was like, I need to take a break, because this promise of listening, and Edgar Villanueva reminded us yesterday that like that's what we need to figure out how to do better, is radically listen. And so that was the question that was affecting me a few years ago. And so I went back to the Kennedy School and I met Marshall Gans, who then introduced me to that snowflake model it is that I showed you before. And so I studied community organizing. I went to India, I created a community organizing platform. But what I realized, the work it is that I was doing was all offline, so I'm not a technologist. But some of the community organizers I was working with were using Facebook and using Facebook groups to kind of hold their communities together. And that's really what kind of brought me to Facebook, is to really think about, well, how do we do this at scale? You're going to meet some community entrepreneurs in a few minutes who are working with almost 2 million people in their community. And that kind of scale to be able to rebuild our social capital is just such a unique opportunity that Facebook can serve. But the challenge is that these individuals aren't supported. So the world of social entrepreneurship, the world of kind of NGOs and social change doesn't understand what the work of these community entrepreneurs are. And so that's what we're trying, that's why we're here at Skoll. We really want to use this time, even with you guys, really as a conversation to learn and figure out how we partner. And that's where my focus is like building partnerships with organizations who can help us unlock these 4 buckets. So we know we need to move more capital to them. Facebook has invested $10 million through a program called Facebook Community Leadership Program in them, but that's not enough. And we need to unlock the philanthropic and venture environments in order to fund these organizations. We need help to be able to figure out how we tell their story. Being able to tell the story of trust being rebuilt, social capital being rebuilt, is a hard story to tell. It's not fitting in the Excel spreadsheets and the M&E forms it is that we usually ask for. We need to invest in them from a training perspective and create jobs for people who have these skills. And then finally, we need a new cultural narrative. So we need public and institutional organizations to really help us share a message of kind of rebuilding our communities, rebuilding our relationships with one another. I personally feel, after a long career kind of in the social enterprise space, that it's sometimes too easy to focus on the technical, what we can fix technically. This is not something that we're going to be able to fix technically, and so we all need to kind of work together to figure out what this new language is and how we're going to do it. And so Facebook has taken some early steps in this direction. We launched this program called the Facebook Community Leadership Program, where we identified 115, we selected 115 individuals from over 6,000 applications from over 180 countries. All of these individuals are building community. They're not running a nonprofit, they're not running a social enterprise. They're using their ordinariness as an individual, like the ordinariness of all of us, their desire to want to connect with other people, and using the connections between people to solve problems. So we gave 5 of them $1 million, and we gave 110 of them $50,000. But I think more important than the money has been them being able to meet each other. Too often, these individuals are often asked, like, what do you do? And it's like, well, I run a community. Well, what does that mean? Well, I have a Facebook group. Like, well, what do you really do? And it's like, it's just not fair. It's like some of these individuals are spending 60 hours a week managing their group and like saving people from domestic violence cases. And so we need, and they don't have a professional identity that they can necessarily be proud of. And so when they connect with one another, they're reinforced that the work it is that they do matters, and that other people understand the work it is that they do, and they can find this camaraderie in the same reason. I think like that's why Skoll was started, is that the social entrepreneur felt lonely, and so we wanted to bring them together. But I really feel that these community entrepreneurs are kind of going through the same evolution that we went through 15 years ago as an industry. And then finally, we take them through a 1-year-long training program. So they meet 3 times, and we're really kind of evolving what it is that we train them in by listening to what it is that they need the most. And so this isn't us trying to superimpose, like, this is how we believe you need to build community. Frankly, these people know how to build community, I think, better than anybody in this room. And so we're trying to really learn from them to figure out then how we scale and support them. And so I'm really excited for you guys to meet some of them live. You guys want to come down? Yeah, and I hope you guys, I'm sure you will be like equally as inspired as I've been. Really, my career's taken this huge shift in really wanting to figure out how we address these issues around social capital, how we can weave our society back together. But that's only been because I've met all of you guys and I've seen this phenomenon happen at such incredible scale through the work it is that you guys do. And so we're going to use this panel for me to ask them some questions, for you to get a sense of what their work is all about, and then we'll open it up for discussion. I will say that, we know that we don't know what we don't know. That this is new. I feel like they are really breaking new ground, and we need to leverage the expertise of individuals in this room to really figure out how we support this new phenomenon that's happening and these individuals who really have this kind of unique talent and commitment to building community. So Lola, I would love to start with you. I've mentioned it a couple times to the audience, but what really inspires me about this work is how I see ordinary people support each other without necessarily needing the intervention of anybody from the outside. Every time I get on the phone with you, every time we have dinner, you tell me another story of that happening in your community. Could you share that with the audience?
Hello everyone, I'm Lola, Omolola. I live in Chicago, United States, and I run Female In. We started out as Female in Nigeria, and now are Female In because we realized that our community was getting much more diverse really quickly, and we wanted every woman from everywhere across the world to feel like whenever she's here, she can know that she's at home too. So we dropped the geographical location, and we're now Female In, and we kept the acronym because we like it. So FIN for short. My community started as my response to a tragic event that happened in Nigeria when armed men stormed a school and kidnapped 276 girls. You may have heard of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. You see, I was raised in Nigeria, and from a very early age, when you're a little girl, usually around 3 years old, whenever you show any sign of self-awareness, usually at that age we're very curious. We start to express ourselves. It's a new shiny thing that we can talk and we can hear our own selves, and we use it a lot. So essentially what happens here is that whenever a girl expresses herself or has an opinion to share, there's usually someone next to her that dissuades her from doing just that. The way it works is she would put, usually a woman too, by the way, she would put 2 fingers together, dig it into a really soft part of your side and twist. It's a pinch. You get a pinch every time you say something. And it's usually followed by a shush. I call them the pinchers and shushers. So essentially we are trained, well trained with pain to shut up, to be silent. Now, how can we be human? How can we exist? How can we take space if we're unable to even be acknowledged as people? That's what happened when we're not expressing our experiences. I wanted to change that. And that was why I started our community. I felt like it's because of the fact that that is missing, is why events like what happened with the girls, almost 300 girls being abducted from their schools. I felt that it was because of things like that happened. I think it's this foundational issue. So silence has been a problem for us, and I wanted to change it, is why I started our Facebook group. To find women who were like me, who were haunted by the experiences that women were having and weren't expressing themselves. In the face of misery and violence, we were remaining silent. So, some of the expected things that have happened as a result of that is that, look at me, a regular woman, suddenly I'm leading a movement. We went from 0 to 1.5 million in the past 3 years. That is the strength of the individuals who also want change like I do. And some other unexpected things, other than me being a leader suddenly, is that women are coming out of the woodwork to show that they are willing to support other women. We are here sidestepping governments that are not able to step up for human beings, and we're doing what we need to do to help and make a change in our own lives, just as a community. I'm going to give you a quick example. There was a day, I think it really hit home to me what was going on here was not ordinary. Is that a woman shared on our group that she was going through such terrible domestic violence that just a week earlier, her husband dragged her 10 blocks across their streets. Not a single person said anything to support her. No one spoke up. No one. This was our experience. I saw this comment that she had made. She, in fact, hid it on another thread that was unrelated. I reached out to her because that's what we do. And I said, is this you? She said, yeah, that's what's happening to me. But nobody has ever listened. I had no expectation of anyone listening today. And anyway, she was able to put the story up there to share her story because I had talked to her about doing that. And the rest of the community feverishly came to her aid. Within minutes, she was offered donations to get out of that situation. It didn't end there. She got 2 offers of a place to stay. She got individuals who were willing to go to her new place, and we have photos to prove, to babysit her children. She had 3 to get her so that she could go look for a job while she stayed in the apartments that they had secured for her. One of them, by the way, had allowed her to live there for 2 years until she was back on her feet. This is how it's working in our communities. And this story is not unusual. This is not isolated. This is a daily, just daily show, daily display of human beings standing up to create change and to essentially rescue the world.
Awesome, Lola. Thank you for sharing that. I really like, Lola saying that this doesn't just happen it's not a story. It's not an anecdote. This is a pattern and a trend that happens in her community day in and day out. And it's really, really remarkable to see people kind of step up for each other in this way. And also, I think that particularly when we talk about community building happening online, I think your story really demonstrates kind of the impact that then happens offline. Babysitting in a new home and a flight out of the situation that she was in. Alejandra and Vanessa, you guys also really focus on kind of this connection between the online and the offline. And also, just so everybody knows, in this program it is that where we funded community leaders, one of the qualifications was that you had to be building your community offline as well. And so we're not of the belief that just by connecting people that means that a community is being built, but because we have this adherence to this definition of community around this give and take relationship, we really believe that it does need to manifest in real life too. And so I would love for you guys to share kind of how you see that intersection happen.
Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Alejandra and this is my twin sister Vanessa, and we are from Ecuador. We started AWEIK, our community, to inspire young people to use their talents to give back in sustainable ways. As cliche as this may sound in this room, when we were 19, we went to India and worked for social enterprises and instantly fell in love with the concept. And we wanted to go back and meet all these social entrepreneurs in our country. And we went there and started talking to young people and were surprised that not many knew about this way of doing business. No one even saw this as a career path. There was this negative stigma about having a profitable business and also making an impact. Young people were facing, they had to choose between making a living or actually doing good, right? So we were like, no, this cannot be happening. And we decided to start this community of young social entrepreneurs in Latin America to find more people like us and also to inspire others to take this path as a career. And talking about this constant offline-online impact, since this event was once a year, we really needed to keep this constant interaction throughout the year. And we saw many stories and that these two really have to work together in order to make the most sustainable impact. One story that comes to mind is the story about Wilson. He's a social entrepreneur from our community, and he wanted to rescue all the traditions of the indigenous woman in medicinal plants by selling their products. So we featured him on an online video, and we posted it, and the video went viral. A lot of people starting to demand his products, even people from the US starting to ask for his products. The only problem was that he wasn't ready to meet that demand yet. So that's when we really realized that, okay, it's not only about showing them online, but also making the offline work meet that demand so he can take advantage of all of this. So it really comes this dynamic where you cannot lose track of one or the other. It's both that work together that make the biggest impact. Yes, and another important aspect of the offline work that we do is that we created this conference around social entrepreneurship. And this event allowed us to connect and engage with some organizations and corporations outside of our online community. And we really started to articulate the ecosystem for young entrepreneurs in our country. And it was amazing to see that we were not only changing the mindset of young people, but also of CEOs from big corporations. For example, after our event, the CEO of a local bank came to us, and he was very inspired by this concept. And he told us that he wanted to work with us. So what we did is reallocate the money that he usually spent on a marketing campaign to provide seed funding for social entrepreneurs in our city. And one last example that comes to mind is that when we show Wilson's story, he was from a farming community, and he wanted to empower his mom, that was an indigenous woman. Another boy from another farmer village in Ecuador saw his story online, and he realized that his story had power, and that his own story mattered, and that he could do something for his own community. So he approached us after an event telling us that he really wanted to do something for potato farmers in Ecuador. And we kept online contact with him for over a year. And in our last event in Medellin, he approached to us. He was so empowered. He traveled more than 48 hours to get there with other 5 farmers, and he told us that he had already started his business, that he was inspired by Wilson's story. And so we just keep seeing this constant reaction of online, but it manifests really offline, all the impact that we are seeing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think it demonstrates both the relational capacity of what it is that you're building, but also, a key thing it is that you learn when you're learning and studying community organizing is you meet people where they're at. And I think that that's really what you're doing. You're meeting young people where they're at. Htet, you also are working on kind of empowering young people by meeting them where they are in Myanmar. Can you help us understand kind of what it is that you do and the impact that you're seeing as a result?
Thank you, Dipti. I'll just start with the impact first.
Okay.
So we have a girl named Sarah. She just recently graduated, and then she lived in quite a rural area. And as a traditional as it is, so she was arranged marriage, in the process of being arranged marriage by her parents. So, and she can use Facebook twice a day, morning and night. And then other than that, she have to help with the chores. And she can only move if her brother accompany her to the places that she go. So that's the case. And then one day she reached out to us and asked, okay, I really want to go abroad and study and travel the world. So please guide me the way. So we have this Facebook community that we inform young people what are the options and the choices that they can take. And also upskill Sarah to the point that a person who only know minimally how to use Facebook, really minimally. We train her to be a Facebook page manager and being able to use Google too, and being able to use online, work online, just by being online. So this Sarah, today now, she has a chance to go study at a critical thinking school in Yangon, which is quite rare in Myanmar. And also, she has a chance to go travel at least 2 or 3 countries. So this is the Sarah, the impact that one of the case that we want to show. So our community is called Myanmar Youth Empowerment Opportunity. So it sounds as it is. So we are created as a community of leader and learner to build an online and offline integrated learning community to empower Myanmar young people like Sarah, so they can catch up with the rest of the world and also compete in a changing digital landscape. So yeah, as you all know, Myanmar is in the transition period to democratic process, and we just recently got digital to internet to probably faster than most of the country. And with those changes, even still, our education system is quite oppressed for the past decades. So there is a huge gap between what the skills being offered in institutions in the country and what the market of opening up the modern capitalist economy need. So we're going in there as a community to handhold the period of the Myanmar young people so they can jump this gap. So that's essentially what our community does, and like the impact. But if you ask me why the next generation is, so in Myanmar, the median age is 27 years old. So when we talk about next generation, it's not really like the future or anything. It's about now, like really now, today. So we really have to like empower these young people and give them the choices about what to survive and upskill them, both online and offline. So like really, I want to bring out this one perspective of offline community and online integration as well, Dipti. So on the online community, we built 80,000 young people. Like it's on our community right now, actively across the country, including the conflict area where the current war is going on. And then we have an offline community across 45 universities, and we train 4,000 young people offline, and 2,500 alone in less 3 months. Yeah, this skill is it's unusual in Myanmar, especially the bureaucratic systems. Anything changing like this cannot happen. So we could train these 4,000 through the community that come on our online, get the resources, and go back into the offline community and train them. So yeah, these are the 500, like there are 500,000 young people today that about to become like Sarah. So we need more, like additional support to untap the possibility,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, especially that last bit. I think it really demonstrates the power of scale in community building. She's able to reach so many people because you're empowering people who then reach out to other people. And that but what that has required is a willingness to let go and really trusting the people to then take it to these 45 different universities. And I find that too often we're not willing to let go in that way. But what I think you guys do is trust in this remarkable way. And that's why I believe that they're really at the helm of kind of addressing this trust deficit that we really live in today. But you've also seen how they're each addressing kind of a different social issue it is. That has probably been a theme here at Skoll, whether it's women's issues or education, helping people become entrepreneurs. Dr. Boyede, you work on child health really directly, which is a topic it is that I know some of us are thinking about here. But coming from a family of doctors, my mom's a doctor, my dad's a doctor, my sister's a doctor, my brother-in-law is a doctor, I would say that it's not necessarily very typical for a doctor to look to a Facebook group to be able to provide that care. And so I'm just curious kind of why you chose that and what your challenges are.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Dr. Vanessa Boyede. I'm a pediatrician from Nigeria. And to answer Dipsy's question, as a pediatrician, I attend conferences every year organized by pediatricians for pediatricians. And one of the things we always discuss is about the child mortality statistics in Nigeria, which is one of the worst in the world. And we're always looking at how can we reduce it. And we already know what to do. We know 75% of what to do to drastically reduce it, along with SDG 3 and all that. But every year, nothing changed. We come back and we still repeat the same story. And I realized that there's a gap. We are the pediatricians talking to each other, but the mothers who are supposed to implement these child survival strategies, nobody is talking to them. So I decided to create a platform where I can help the mothers know what to do to prevent their children from dying. And what platform is best to use on Facebook, where majority are already on. So I started a Facebook group called Ask the Pediatricians. And on Facebook, a lot of mothers in Nigeria are used to asking other people questions. And sometimes people also give them the wrong answer. So is even worse. So, and that's why I created a platform where mothers can actually ask the professionals, so they are sure that when they get answers here, this is from a child health professional and they can rely on them. And one of the things we also do is to break down myths or beliefs that are actually dangerous to child health, and those are the reason why our children are dying. And so we'll be able to create a community that grew quickly. We have over 500,000 women and men as well on our community, and they can ask questions, and and through this platform, we've been able to correct belief system. So mothers are proud to show for that I'm exclusively breastfeeding my babies. All the mistakes I made in the previous with the previous children, I don't make them anymore. A mother particularly, for example, posted a picture of a child that was so severely malnourished. People were wondering, was this child from a war-torn country? And we were able to reach out to her. But beyond what we gave her as health information, we also went offline to reach out to her, get her child into the hospital. And 3 months later, that child has remarkably recovered. And this is like a typical story that we tend to get. That child would have become one of those mortality statistics, if not for the intervention we're able to do. But we also realize that there are mothers who don't have access to smartphones, who don't have access to social media, who also need this particular intervention. And so beyond what we do online, we also do offline. So we do community medical outreaches to communities that are quite indigent, that have very limited access to healthcare professionals or healthcare facilities, and we do that as well. And through that, we're also able to reach thousands of indigent children. And basically, that's what we do on Ask the Pediatrician Foundation.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask Noah one last question, and then what I would love to do is open it up to all of you to share some of the challenges and where it is that this community can really potentially help us, and then turn it over to you guys. But Noah, you have been kind of a really formative part of my last year as we've been establishing this new identity of a community entrepreneur. So Noah is one of the FCLP residents whom we have given $1 million to help his vision of the African Farmers Club really come alive. And so I would love for you to share kind of what it's meant to you to take on this identity of a community entrepreneur, what it's meant to kind of get this large piece of funding, and the challenges that have come with it.
Well, my name is Noah Nasiali Kadima, a father of 3, 2 boys, twins, and a small girl. And my background is in tech. My background is in IT, building tech solutions for the intelligent systems. But this is my 13th year as a farmer, and my first year as a farmer sitting on the table. And you might be wondering what I mean. A lot of discussions have been done about farmers. Farmers have been told this is the right fertilizer to use, you need to use this type of fertilizer for this soil. They've been told basic things like, this is the price of tractors plowing your land. It's already been set. Irrigation systems have been put there. But last year was a different year. And as I say, this is my first year sitting on the table. Dipti, thank you for Facebook. They put me on the table to listen to me, to listen to the African farmers. What do we need? And this is a transformational change for me as well as farmers in Africa, because we discuss about hunger, but we do not discuss who is this person who is supposed to help us curb hunger. And as the second SDG raises the issue of zero hunger, what are we talking about if we don't talk to the farmers? And one of the reasons why I started the Africa Farmers Club was my personal story. I remember I was contracted to plant cabbages for somebody. Again, this was another story of being told what to grow. And I planted 6 acres of cabbages. It's a very interesting story because I grew cabbages, and I remember they were very good because one of them, I think the smallest was like 9 kilos. And when it came to buy, the person who had contracted me, who had also been given funding, did not show up. So I was stuck there with 75,000 cabbages.
And it wasn't the person, it was an aid organization that contracted you.
Yes. And those were 75,000 cabbages, and I don't even eat cabbages. And I remember my wife asked me, now we're going to make cabbage soup. It really disturbed me as I was at some point, because the cabbages were now rotting, because I didn't know when to sell, how to sell, even how to check how ready cabbages were. And as I was going back home, I asked myself, probably I'm still young, I can bounce back, probably even look for a job, but what about this farmer who that is everything to them? What happens to them? And so before I reached home, I remember I asked myself, should I start a group? And so we started a WhatsApp group initially, but after that I realized this is more than just a small community. And we started the Africa Farmers Club, July 27th, 2017. It's a date I'll never forget. And this group has transformed. It has transformed because it is no longer about Nasiali. And today, me being here, it's not talking about me, myself, and my experience. It's talking about the real African farmers. What is the story that the world knows about the real African farmer? And it's a different world. Yes, we are having challenges, quite a number of challenges, but being given a platform as great as Facebook to be able to share our stories. I remember when we started the group, to be able to know that this is the farmer, I asked people who are joining to take a selfie on their farms. And they did that, and people kept on asking, but what about those who don't have smartphones? I remember one person asked me, what about the other farmers who are not available? And I said, we will get to that level. But as we started the community, we started getting very interesting questions like, can you guys organize and come and train my farm workers? You know, where can we come and learn this? And I have never studied agriculture. And so that was an opportunity again to reach out using the platform and the community to experts in the industry, experts who are listening to farmers, who are trying to solve farmers' problems. And we reached out to them, we organized online discussions. And getting back to the question you've asked, with the resources that are available, now that I'm sitting on the table as well, I'm able to bring out these real issues and talking to the community, to the world. What can you do? What can we build for farmers? And back home, there's a part of the country, it's called Turkana, where for the longest time, we've always heard that people are dying of hunger and there's no food. And one of our community members that are there, just to give a short background, our communities, we have 128,000 farmers across Africa. But apart from just the online community, we also have the online communities. We're also building, because some of the farm workers might not have a smartphone. How can we reach out to them? And so we're also building a very strong offline community with this. Thank you to the resources that now we have. And now back to the story about Turkana. What happened is that one of the members of the community, she told us, please come over and just see what we're doing. And I remember me and my team, we started asking ourselves, what do we expect? And so we said, it's quite a distance, around 700 kilometers, and we cannot just drive there with food aid. And we didn't want to do the same thing, because this is the same story that has been done, for more than 30 years. I'm not yet 40, so I don't know how it happened at 40. And so what happened is, I remember she's called Lucia. She asked us, could you just come with seeds and fertilizer and basic chemicals and some inputs, even like hose, jembes for the farms. And we asked ourselves in the office, is it real? Is it real? Should we really carry this? And we said, fine, let's go and see. When we reached there, it was a different experience. It was totally different. And the post that you're seeing there, it was, I think, less than a kilometer from the airstrip. There are some farms, very good established farms, but where the challenge is that the farmers in this area have never been taught what to grow. They've never been taught why they need to grow. And one of a big organization has been raising a lot of money, close to 2 billion Kenya shillings every year, to be able to support and bring out the hunger, in this region. But this year was different, because once we went there, then the announcement that was meant to be done about hunger in Turkana has not been made yet. I don't know if it's being made now, but we helped out these farmers. We understood and started training them. We showed them basic things like how to plow their land, how to grow. I remember we saw even cowpeas being planted, and the pictures that you're seeing there, these are some of the things this is like less than 2 weeks ago. And thank you to the resources that now we have through the Facebook Community Leadership Program. It is a powerful story. Reason being, these are people who have never seen and known that they can plant and grow their own food. Now they're even now asking, where do we sell this food? Yeah.
So I really, for us coming here to Skoll, it really is about learning, and that's kind of our priority in terms of really figuring out how we take this very grassroots, very organic way of solving problems, of connecting people to one another, and help institutionalize it, help direct more capital in this direction, figure out how we can help you sustain and scale, but still allow you, back to what kind of Edgar reminded us yesterday, to have the power of deciding what it is that's required for your community. And so I would love to open it up to kind of any of you. Maybe Lola, you can start, and just in helping this audience understand how we can best support you, and even what your reflections and learnings of being at Skoll for the last kind of day and a half has been.
Thank you. In the past 2 days, I've learned a lot of lessons, and it's been fantastic listening to voices that I've never really had a lot of opportunities to learn from and to hear. However, there was something that was, they just kept, standing out in every conversation I've had, in every panel that I've listened to, is that the themes seem so similar to something I've heard over and over and over again. And they don't seem to even closely connect with the experience that I'm having on ground in my community on an almost moment-to-moment basis. In order to help you understand what I'm saying, I need to paint a picture of what the typical day as someone who is leading a Facebook group as large as ours looks like.
Just to remind people, you have a 1.5 million members.
Yes, I have 1.5 million members in our group. We started out in 2015, and almost immediately, even before I knew what I was trying to do here, what this was going to, who plans for 1 million people in a space? Nobody does. My plan was to find women who were as concerned about the issues as I was, who could help me build an environment, the conditions, and the atmosphere where women will feel comfortable speaking up about our concerns. My expectations were that these women were going to come here and, like punditry, have general discussions about what happened. I'm going to give you an example of one of the early posts that I put on our group. I combed the internet for voices which represented what I wanted us to talk about. And one of those earlier posts was of a woman who wanted to go cut her hair. I think I found it on Twitter. She wanted to go cut her hair, and the barber said, okay, so you want to cut your hair. Does your husband know about this? And she was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, you're going to need a note from your husband to cut your hair. This is the reality for lots of our members. This is not unusual. Another experience that I posted in our group was of a woman who said she actually was just running from a violent relationship, and she needed to rent our own place with her 3 children. And the landlord said, I'm sorry, I can't rent to a woman. Like, where is your man? And she said, I'm kind of running away from him. And she just plainly told her that if a woman living alone, that would make you a prostitute. I expected this, like I said, general conversations to happen because no one was talking about them. The same thing that happened with the case of the women that were abducted. Not a single media house said the name of a single one of the girls. No one. Even those who cared the most didn't think they should humanize the individuals. They were just numbers, 276, hundreds of women. We can do better. And that's exactly what it really comes down to. Could you ask your question again? The second part of your question?
No, I was just, I would love for this audience to know kind of what your challenges are, but also, you've even been really thoughtful with me, sharing some of your reflections over the last
Yeah.
couple days in terms of connecting the conversation here
Right.
to this reality that you
Right.
know of.
So essentially, it's a back-to-back, it's constant. We're always there in order to build a no-judgment zone. The conditions to get women expressing their experiences forthright and outright. We needed to do the work of staying up, getting up at sun up, and not going to sleep till sundown. Essentially, I can't dedicate a minute to it, or an hour to it, or 5 hours to it. I am running my community all the time. And I'm not alone. I have 10 people who are assisting me to moderate this community. This only makes sense because we have a very self-policing culture. Because how else? I mean, just consider that ratio is impossible. So what I've noticed since I've been here, however, is that lots of people that I've listened to seem to be, discussing things that seem so theoretical. It doesn't consider the collective intelligence of grassroots, which is what I do every single day, is that I wake up to 600 messages in my inbox of women saying, my child is sick, and having absolutely no idea about what to do next. About, doctors, hospitals, and as far as the UK, calling me to say, one of your members is on suicide hold. And she doesn't want to talk to members of her family. She asked us to call you and talk to you. This is how we became a lifeline for our members. This is how we grow from 0 to 1.5 million members, even though we're a secret group which cannot be found in search. It's absolutely organic.
So just to make that really clear, if you guys tried on your phone to find it, you couldn't find it. So 1.5 million women have found it through word of mouth.
Yes.
Or being referred into the group.
To become a member, you need to be presented by someone else?
Yes, it's invite only. So just imagine how much value we must give for each individual who enters the community to have to go back and add every single woman she knows. That is what is going on our Facebook group. And it's because of the connections that we're making there. It's because of the real transformational changes that we're making in people's lives that we're now meeting in offline, that we're now meeting around the world. We have had events all over the world, from Italy to Ghana to here in the United Kingdom. 3,000 members came together in a meetup in Lagos, Nigeria. 600 members in London. And these are the numbers all over the world. And we had so much going on that we essentially had to put that on hold. We had to put our events on hold because they got too big. This was the problem we had. And so just imagine the thirst that we have generated. We're bringing our events back this year with a bang. And guess what? We have grown by 1 million members since. So the truth of the matter is, there are lots of challenges when we're faced with communities like that. And those challenges don't seem to, the narratives that we have now don't take those realities into consideration at all. He doesn't take into consideration the fact that I am a regular woman, a mom of 2 little girls, and I'm doing this without getting paid. It doesn't take into consideration at all that this matters enough to me and to other people who are helping to build this, and these guys, that we want to die doing this. Being able to make a, thank you. But there is a lot that is coming out of this. We are sidestepping the bureaucracies that are not prioritizing our needs. But I want to hear those conversations being had with the people who have the ability and the access to the people who have the ability to help us create this change in a real way. I'm going to segue to the main concerns that we have, or should I say the biggest worry points that we have. Here I am, a regular woman from modest means. I want to help. And I know a whole movement of people who are behind me, who trust that I can. We have proven that we can. How do we do that? First, we want to be able to reach individuals who are unable to have access to the internet and cannot be on Facebook. It's extremely expensive to use the internet for most of our members. Yeah, we have members in more than 99 countries around the world. but there are still people who we haven't yet been able to reach. Millions more people. Being able to bring them together in such an engaged and engaging community can be transformational for the world. Imagine what they could do. Our members aren't just trying to take, they want to give. I'll give you a quick anecdote. A woman has come to her group and said, oh, I had a baby and I don't have any money to buy. I'm about to have a baby in 2 days and I don't have any money to provide the things that my baby needs. And within minutes, there are people who are not just offering her, a place for her baby to sleep. They are going to her house to go welcome her at the hospital. At scale, this would be magic. And we want to be able to do that by, number one, bringing physical spaces to societies, to the locations, going to where women don't need to have the internet in order for them to be able to get this assistance. To get the tone and the heart of our community, bring it into their local areas where they can walk in, be linked to services from mental illness services to whatever services, to be able to have access to parenting information in a real way, to be able to have access to maternal health care in a real way. We are ready to listen and learn from structures that already exist and what you're doing. But we need you to be able to listen and learn from what we're trying to do here. And we have scale. We have the platform to help you move an army of people to do anything you want within a short period of time. Within 5 minutes of my group, when you make a post, 5 minutes, I can guarantee you 40,000 reactions from your primary target audience.
Awesome, Lola. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really want to make sure we have time for dialogue, and I think we have to end at 1, so I would love to open this up to Q&A. Unless any of you have like a burning challenge that you really need to get off your chest. No? Okay.
I think I run a community for education, as I mentioned, and there are challenges that I face when I was talking about technology. So in my country, technology, and it's traditional, you consider that you have to have an app to consider an education tech company. No one download app. People don't even have an app store in the phone anymore. So we have to redefine what education tech could potentially be. Is technology proximity? Is it the new tech? So that's, yeah. It's my burning challenge that I face every time I go talk to people.
Yeah, and I think even related to that, what I often hear, there's the tech when you're making an app, and people are beginning to understand what that is. But there's the tech when you're just using social media to be able to be the tool to serve people, and that is something it is that I feel as though there's even much less understanding about. Did you want to say something, Noah, and then I'll turn it around?
I think for me. As I started, I mentioned that I'm a father of twins. And one day my son asked me, Daddy, why are you forcing us to eat this food? We don't want this. And I looked at him and I wondered if I told my mom that at that age, it would have been a different story. And I thought about it, but this reality hit me when I got the award. And I asked myself, so now, what am I going to do? So I waited for some proposal from Facebook in that, you need to do this. But that was so different because I was told, think about what you want to do. You are the expert. Let us know what you want to do. We can help you. And why this is important is because it gave me and my team the free will, because we have been building this community. So my humble appeal to the community out there is, as Lola has said, and she's said it very well, is we have the community, we have the people, we have in my world and this industry, we have the farmers who know what they want. Please listen to us. Let us, as you build the systems. I mean, there's a lot of agri-tech, even right now, there's an agri-tech conference going on in Kenya. But I am very sure there are no farmers that have been invited to sit there. So listen to us, we are already there. If my child can say, Daddy, I don't want to eat this food, probably something else. What about us farmers? If you're building irrigation systems, what works well for us?
Thank you.
and one last thing I wanted to share, and it echoes everyone's thoughts, is that we are young people, and sometimes we have all the energy, passion, we want to change the world, we want to build new things, but of course we lack the wisdom and experience that only time can give you. So I guess my humble ask is, please share your knowledge with us, and also like, let's make it a two-way conversation so we can give you our insights, what our like generation wants, how do we work, how do we see the world, and how can we work with your structure and your way of scaling things to really push this forward. So I guess it's about like listening and just sharing with us as well. So
thank you. I think that's a great segue to opening it up to any and all of you to ask any questions.
My question is to Thiri, actually. My name's Chloe. I actually used to live in Myanmar for about 4 years. I worked for the British Chamber of Commerce, so I was more on the kind of private sector side. And one of the key challenges in Myanmar is access to human capital, and finding young people and training them in such a way that there's a sustainability in terms of skill set. So my question to you is, how important do you see the private sector playing a role in facilitating that? Because what we found is not a lot of Myanmar organisations have the capacity to develop internships or even understood what the value of an intern would be in their offices. Neither did the international larger organisations. I mean, they did have some capacity to develop that, but I think that learning hasn't quite filtered down in the system. So what's your thoughts on the private sector side, but also the government in promoting that?
Thank you for the questions. So in Myanmar, as she mentions, it's quite a difficulty. So, but we're trying to change this, we're trying to change the systems. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like first, we have a phase one, inform and inspiring through Facebook online community and also teaching. And third, now we're rescaling people. And then there's a third phase called like connecting opportunities. So that's the phase that we're working on next year. And now we're already started. So we're identifying that, like, you know, when you go talk to company now, the employee don't know how to send emails. Yeah, the CEO has to sit down and teach, like, you know, this is how you send emails. They don't know how to do file sharing. So this is a reality that we're facing in our human capital of Myanmar. Yeah. So we're trying to train these young people to the point that it's almost unknown in speed. So we're trying to educate we have Facebook community money, and then we use that and create a program called Htet. So in Burmese, in English, it's called modern. So we're trying to create a modern workforce and try to bring this dialogue of companies and government sector together in one place. So we're trying to train these young people and placements in a like tech company like e-commerce, and also we're in the process of discussions of placing these young people into a regional governments and parliament. If it happens, it's gonna be the first time. But there are discussions going on, like since last year. It just the dynamic of like the need of human capital and the action that they really have to take. They cannot just sit down in the table and make the miracle happen. So there are changes going on in the systems, and we're trying to push it. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Incredibly inspiring. Thanks so much. I wondered if the panel could talk about how you handle sort of maybe the darker side of groups. So I've moderated some groups myself, and you know, the misogyny that you're talking about, that your group is protecting women from, and the violence. Sometimes that can also come up in our groups, even when they're private. And I mean, we've talked a lot about the benefits of Facebook, and I'm sure you're very well aware there's also a lot of attention on the company about some of the way it's fueling the darker side of society. So I'd love to gather the wisdom from the panel of how they manage that.
I think I can try that. Our community has been basically for farmers. And it is very interesting that sometimes you get situations that you don't even know what to do. I remember there's a member of the community posted that she just said, "This is the end, I cannot take it anymore." And interestingly, some of these posts are not seen as fast. But when I saw this post, I tried to reach out to her, and I could not get her. So I reached out to someone else who had replied and said, "Where are you? I'm coming to your house." And so I followed with the person who had mentioned that she's going to that person's house. And very interestingly, it was, I think, the longest 3 hours of my life, because I was waiting for this lady, the member of our community, to reach to this other person's house. And she was stuck in the house screaming, and she wanted to take her life. And I did not know what to do. I have never reached that, and I thought probably I'll only be solving farmers and farmers' problems. I didn't realize farmers' problems are more than just the farm. And what happened is that we had to take down that post, because now everybody was asking questions. All the bad things were now also being put out there. So we managed to convince her that I could talk to her on phone, and she tried to explain. She explained to me what the problem was. It was quite far. So I sent one of the moderators as well to just reach out and go there physically. What I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of negative that will be out there. A lot of negative. Even when you pick a newspaper, bad sells. Bad news sells faster. But it is up to us, as we are working with communities, what can we turn? How can we bring out the best out of what is already out there? Because it is already out there, but people are looking for hope. People are looking for a shoulder to lean on. You'll not just lean on anybody you meet on the streets, but as we are building these communities, there's a lot that is going on. I also sit in as the CLC lead as well.
CLC is a program that Facebook runs called Community Leader Circles, where we help facilitate community leaders to be able to meet locally to support each other.
Yeah, so I see that in Nairobi. And we see quite a number of negative posts coming out there. But sometimes I ask myself, when you see a bank robbery, what do you see? Do you see the vehicle that these bank robbers drove to that particular bank to steal, or do you see the robbery itself? So it is important for us to also see the difference, because if there's a vehicle called Noah, so I'll just use my name. So if the robbers used Noah to go and steal, will you stop buying Noah because of that? So it is just to be able to see what positive can we bring out from these communities that are already there, because it's already negative out there. Do we still sit and dwell on the negative, or what can we refine? Out of this.
Yeah. Go ahead. There's negative. The way we are battling negativity in our community is by building it into the fabric of our community culture, that we have a zero tolerance for negativity. Think about it. The mission is to end silence, and we have created a no judgment zone. There's no way that if people are negative, or if there's, the atmosphere isn't right for us to connect and be compassionate, then our entire community doesn't work. So it is the first thing that needs to go. We've battled that with lots of tools that Facebook has actually built to make that workable for us. And we've also battled that with rules. So in my community, for instance, because it's a place where we put our hearts on display on a daily basis, where we defy a culture that does not prioritize us. And so the first rule is do not judge. And we've taken the extra step to help people understand what that even means and what that even looks like. The second is do not share. So respect is important in that space. You sharing the story of someone in a public, private space to another space is not because we're afraid. You don't tell your story to 1 million people because you're afraid, but because you don't have a right to rob that individual of their voice. They get to decide who to tell their story to. And that is the reason why that do not share is another rule that is important to us. We only have 5. The third is we respect your faith, your personal faith, but in this space where we have women from all over the world, you cannot lead with your faith. You have to lead with your heart and logical thoughts, because we can all relate with that. The fourth is no unsolicited advice. So essentially, just because it pops into your head does not mean it needs to exit out of your mouth. It is the premier, it is the premier, responsibility of every one of us to have self-control and to bring it to that space. It is a privilege to be on Fin. It is a privilege to hear stories from women from all over the world. These are stories, many of them I've never told anyone. A woman shared that for 40 years, she had kept it to herself that her father had been sexually assaulting her for 16 years. This is something that could easily go viral because it is information that you cannot find anywhere else. But the reason it's not going viral is respect. So I think it really comes down to us, the leaders, being able to define what our mission is, being able to refine that message, and being able to succinctly and consistently communicate exactly what that mission is to the individuals who are in our community and to the people who are outside of our community. I think we have a responsibility to protect our people.
I think that's exactly right, Lola. And what I hope you guys take away from this is exactly what you ended with, which is that building a community is not pushing a few buttons on your phone and starting a Facebook group. That it really is an act of courageous and moral leadership. And that's what these individuals are really demonstrating, is the responsibility to use your language that you're taking of the thousands of people it is, millions of people that may be following you. It's not push, push, push. It's not just, clicktivism, whatever that word is. It really is leadership, it's judgment, it's defining the norms and the rules of your group. And so these leaders are often approached by a number of NGOs or brands to say, hey, can we distribute through you? And what I know all of you have done is said no more than you've said yes, because the values and the norms of your community aren't going to be respected. And I think that's why this work is harder than it seems and needs the support of larger institutions to be able to see it through and ensure it's sustainable.
In our community, we have said no every single time.
Yeah, you've never said yes, Lola.
Yeah. Then the reason why is not because we don't understand. I know the value of being able to feed myself and my family.
Right.
And I know the value of being able to give more to our community. But I think that we have to hold out for real help. We have to hold out to do something massive that is transformational. If I am all, passionate about making sure I'm able to do the things that I need to do, what about the millions of people we can make a difference for? I think that is more important than me being able to do that.
One last question. I know we're coming close to the end of time.
Should I just shout?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much. Incredible. The way you articulate your leadership. Thanks for bringing community organising to 2.0. We've been doing it as communities through history. So it's incredible to see that human capacity. My question is to Facebook. In the UK and the West, there's concerns around access to information to communities in asylum applications, governments having access. So what is, as your responsibility for community leaders, what is Facebook doing to support that, or how do you support these spaces for trust and safety to support these incredible leaders?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think we have a lot of responsibility. And, a part of my work is, one part of my work is to really establish this kind of new discipline of community entrepreneurship. Another part of my work is to really understand kind of how bad actors take advantage of the platform. And so what we're doing is actually sitting down. 3 weeks ago I was in Beirut in the Middle East, so a different context than the one that you raised, with human rights activists and civil society, really trying to understand first more deeply in the same way the approach it is that we've taken with supporting these community entrepreneurs is by first listening to them. really understanding like what the challenges are, what their needs are, and then building from that perspective, whether it's the products or the tools or the programs. And similarly, we're sitting down with human rights activists and civil society all over the world. But 3 weeks ago, I was in Beirut meeting with human rights activists from about 17 different countries to really help us understand kind of what the challenges really are and then what we can do to prevent those bad actors from operating. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. We have a large responsibility and we're really beginning to take some steps on it. And I'm getting a marker. Thank you guys very much for being part of this. And yeah, please feel free to be in touch as you think about kind of ways it is that we can work together.